Welcome inside Appalachia. I'm Mason Adams. This week, a Tennessee DJ takes us on a tour of Appalachian punk and metal.
It's got a groove to it that you just don't find in the other bigger scenes.
Appalachian culture is enriched by its immigrants. We explore the fusion of West Virginia and Japan.
Actually, the other day, someone came in and just ordered all in Japanese, and we had an entire conversation in Japanese. It's like 10, 15 minutes. We're one of the only places here in Morgantown that can offer that.
And Appalachia isn't all punk rock and Japanese food. There's also string band music.
I once said it's a homecoming in the hills for old-time musicians, their friends, and their family.
You'll hear these stories and more this week inside Appalachia.
Support for this program is brought to you by Solar Holler, helping West Virginia homeowners manage their energy costs through solar power. Details at solarholler.com. Support for this program is provided by the Thrasher Group, an architecture, engineering, and field services firm serving West Virginia clients and communities since 1983. More information at thethrashergroup.com.
Welcome inside Appalachia. I'm Mason Adams. Appalachia is known for its distinctive music. It's home to thriving punk, metal, indie, and hardcore scenes. Now the world is getting a chance to check out Appalachia's extreme music scene, thanks to Maximumrocknroll. Maximumrocknroll was a zine that ran from 1982 to 2019. It first started as a radio show in California, though. Now it's a podcast. Since October, Johnson City, Tennessee DJ Carrie Allen has been part of the show and spotlighting Appalachian bands. Carrie Allen, thank you for coming on Inside Appalachia to speak with us.
Yes, thank you. I'm very excited to be here with you.
So you're hosting a somewhat regular show for Maximumrocknroll that showcases punk, indie, and extreme metal from Appalachia. You know, as someone who does that show, what would you say distinguishes Appalachian punk and metal and just extreme music from other areas?
The biggest distinction is probably the experience that these musicians have that's different from the LA scene or the DC scene or the New York City scene. Not that it's better or worse, it's just a different experience, and that shows through their music. Also, I think that being a Southern band, being at Central Appalachian is definitely Southern. It's got a groove to it that you just don't find in the other bigger scenes. You know, it's like distinguishing New Orleans jazz from Chicago jazz or New York City jazz. It's very much jazz, but it's very distinct in its sound, and it's something you have to listen to and experience, and you'll hear it and you'll go, oh, that's probably a Southern punk band, or that's a Southern metal band. Not better or worse, but just distinctly different from the other scenes. And also at the same time, it's the same. It's the same, and it just doesn't have the exposure that those bigger city bands or scenes typically have. That's sort of my goal in doing these shows for Maximumrocknroll, is just given this scene, which is a very prominent scene and has been around for a long time, the exposure that I think that it deserves. Did you want me to mention how I got involved with Maximumrocknroll?
Sure, yeah, I'd love to hear that story.
I wasn't a regular listener to it until I started getting involved in radio, and the Pirate Flag Radio, which I do my Fuzzkill show for, hosts Maximumrocknroll every week. So I was like, that's when I really started listening to it regularly. So I started following them on Instagram and Facebook, and honestly, they just put out an ad that said, hey, we're looking for someone to fill in our spots when hosts aren't available. I simply just sent an email. I was like, hey, I'm hosting a garage rock, punk rock show here in Bristol, Virginia. I sent them a file of my show, and they came back and was like, yeah, heck yeah, come on and jump aboard. So when I first started, I was just fill-in. So that's how I got started. And then they lost some hosts, and I just said, hey, if you want me to come on regular, I'd be happy to come on a regular. And they're like, yeah, that'd be great. So like, we'll put you every 6 weeks. And I was like, great, that's awesome. So I don't know, I may be the first Southern boy to host Maximum Rock and Roll.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Maximum Rock and Roll has done this. It's kind of made a name for flying the flag, not just for New York and Oakland, but bands out of Japan and South America. You're the first Appalachian DJ, perhaps, but you're still like sort of in a long line of lineage of them showcasing lesser known bands. Can you give me an example of a band or a couple of bands that you play and maybe kind of what makes them distinctive within that frame of Appalachian music?
And when I think of that specifically, I think of Lips from Harlan, Kentucky. Very much a punk rock band, but they're not afraid of that Appalachian identity. It's very raw. I think a lot of the music around here is very raw and it's not nearly as produced. When it comes to a metal band, I would think of Coffin Smoke from here at Johnson City. It's so groovy and it's so riff driven. It's very distinctive. And its sound, it's just got a heavy groove to it. You get it from here in the South, and I don't know if maybe that's the sweet tea or the biscuits and gravy that we have they don't have out there, Nerve Endings is a good example of the hodgepodge of the genres that are showcased in the Appalachian underground scene. You could definitely put them on any punk show and they would fit in. You could definitely put them on any doom metal show and they would fit in, or any hardcore show and they would fit in. And I think they encompass all those genres so well, and their stage antics are what makes them so prominent in the scene. I think they've been around for a long time now and they're still going strong. I think they do a good job of just raw punk rock vocals and just heavy riffs that would fit well in any metal show that you'd put them in. Ex-Parents is such a good example of that DIY hardcore that is coming out of Roanoke. That Roanoke area seems to be really encapsulating in that scene. There's so many good hardcore bands, but X-Parents is a highlight for me. You also have Warmones out of Asheville, North Carolina, who really holding strong to that like more straightforward punk that I really enjoy. If you're looking at the metal scene, Wind Rider is from Carter County, Tennessee, and they just got off an international tour. The doom metal scene is growing fantastically in our area, especially in eastern Kentucky and honestly here in East Tennessee. It's very Black Sabbath, but it's also very like southern metal. The scene in eastern Kentucky has grown like wildfire. It seemed to be started from the doom scene, and now they're branching out into death metal and you got like this mixture of like southern rock and like heavy metal that's coming out there. Like Buzzhound is another band that's from Wattsburg. What do they want?
Carrie Allen, thank you so much for coming on and speaking with us.
Thank you.
Carrie Allen is a DJ on Maximum Rock and Roll Radio. He also plays garage rock and gospel on his Fuzzkill and Righteous Fuzz radio shows in the Johnson City area. The bands we heard in that segment were Lips, Coffin Smoke, Nerve Endings, X-Parents, Warmones, Wind Rider, and Buzzhound. You can find Maximum Rock and Roll Radio wherever you get podcasts. Just about every college town has its go-to block or neighborhood for restaurants and bars. In Morgantown, the home of West Virginia University, that's High Street. And tucked off the main drag is Yama, a cozy diner that's been serving up home-style Japanese food since the 1990s. Japanese students and staff go there to share language, culture, and food. It's also a place of comfort and connection for the larger community. In 2023, Folkways reporter Lauren Griffin brought us this story.
As you walk into Yama, the workers greet you with a warm smile.
Hey, I'm doing great. How are you doing?
The restaurant invites you to slow down and spend some time connecting. You can grab a manga comic to read or enjoy the Japanese TV playing in the background. The food here is different from what you typically find in nearby Japanese restaurants. Less sushi, more comfort foods, like katsudon, a pork cutlet over rice. Yama attracts die-hard regulars.
My name is Sun. I'm originally from Korea, but I've been living in Morgantown since 2005. I come here once or twice a week.
People are kind of obsessed with this place.
Honestly, I got a little bit annoyed when they closed down a lot during COVID. I always had to check my Instagram or Facebook to check their business hours.
Yama the restaurant was started by Yama the man back in the 1990s. Yama prioritized hiring staff that were Japanese or Japanese American. People like Miki Carducci. She's from Osaka, Japan, and has been working at Yama for years. She loves the food, especially the teriyaki tofu.
So crispy, and it's like melty tofu in the middle. So teriyaki tofu isn't what Japanese people eat. That's his creation.
Yama's creation. Yama was a trained chef, but he wanted to run a more casual restaurant. In Japan, he operated a bar that attracted university students, just like the spot he created in Morgantown. About half the workers are students. Carducci's son, Hugo, recently started working at Yama with his mom.
It's funny. There's sometimes, especially like when I was being trained as a server, she would not like yell at me, but kind of scold me a little bit if I didn't do things right.
Hugo says growing up, he rarely met other Japanese people. The Japanese community in West Virginia is very small.
I moved to Greenbrier County, Lewisburg. A lot of people there have never seen an Asian person before. People saying are you Chinese? And I'll say like, no, I'm Japanese. It's like, oh, like, it's the same thing.
Hugo's now a student at West Virginia University down the street. For him, Yama is a community space that lets him explore and share in his Japanese identity.
Actually, the other day, someone came in and just like ordered all in Japanese, and we had an entire conversation in Japanese. It was like 10, 15 minutes. We're one of the only places here in Morgantown that can offer that.
I used to be a regular. I studied Japanese at WVU, and I would hang out at Yama's for hours with friends, like Kaoru Shirashi. I called him up recently, and he told me how he felt when he first arrived in Morgantown.
It's just nothing there. I was a little bit afraid.
But Yama became a comforting place for him and other Japanese students at WVU. It reminded them of home.
I feel like I'm in Japan, even though in Yama restaurant in West Virginia.
And Yama-san himself was a big part of that. He would remember customers and sometimes bring you a little treat, like mochi ice cream.
If you go one time, he knows customer's face. Next time when you go, surprisingly, he noticed us and with name.
But Yama-san's not at the restaurant anymore. He retired a few years ago and moved back to Japan. Now there's a new owner.
My name is Min Kim, and I'm the owner of this restaurant, Yama Japanese. I've been operating this restaurant since 2016.
Before Min took over, she had never worked in a restaurant. Her primary focus was raising her daughter. But she heard from a friend that Yama was looking for help. Min needed a job, and Yama needed a successor, even one that didn't know much about running a restaurant.
So basically, no experience at all. But I learned and then trained by Mr. Yama. He always complained about me. This is not house kitchen. Min, no, this is business. You can't do this way, do that way.
Min apprenticed with Yama-san for 4 years, learning his recipes and the ins and outs of the kitchen.
The most challenging dish was tempura. Because Yama-san, he graduated from culinary school. I don't know, his body and especially hands are very different. So he can't even touch the hot boiling oil, which I cannot do it.
Min is a trained cook now and has perfected all of Yama's dishes. But she's not Japanese. She's Korean.
Some customer, they know I'm Korean. So they ask, why don't you add some Korean to your menu? But I just want to keep Yama as a Japanese in a home-style restaurant.
Min says her apprenticeship with Yama-san was more than just learning recipes. She was also becoming part of a family.
Yama itself, it has its own energy, like in a living creature. It's just not a place.
Papering the corner of the restaurant are postcards, letters, and doodles from customers expressing their love for Yama, its food, and its people.
The food is not only something you eat, it delivers so many, emotions and other stuff that you can see. So it is restaurant, but we provide something other than food. Sometimes you see customers really down, depressed, but they still come because they need comfort food. And just bring some sweetness to them. Come on, this is extra for you to make you cheer up.
Yama is a little pocket of Japan among the hills of West Virginia. Many who come here simply love the food, but there are also hidden depths in a bowl of Yama's ramen.
Thank you.
For Inside Appalachia, I'm Lauren Griffin in Morgantown, West Virginia.
That story is part of our Folkways reporting project, which covers arts and culture in our region. You can find more Folkways stories at our website, wvpublic.org. For musicians yearning for a week of jam sessions, there's maybe no better outlet than the Appalachian String Band Festival. Later in the show, we take a trip to Clifftop. You're inside Appalachia. I'm Mason Adams. Since January, the Trump administration has fired or laid off nearly 1 out of 4 staffers in the National Park Service. Republicans in Congress are now proposing even more cuts. WKYU's Derek Parham reports that visitors around the country are feeling the effects, including at parks like Mammoth Cave and the Great Smoky Mountains.
It's the height of visitor season at Mammoth Cave National Park in southern Kentucky. Parking lots are full and cars line the roadways. Visitors are clamoring for spots on underground tours of the longest cave system in the world.
Attention Mammoth Cave guests.
I've got a spot on the popular historic tour, along with more than 100 other visitors, including Mike Johnson from Asheville, North Carolina. He says he's worried about ongoing threats to the Park Service.
They've just been around for so long, and it just seems like, okay, cool, yeah, no, like that's a national park that's not going anywhere. And now it's like, okay. Things could change.
Through cuts made by the Trump administration and Elon Musk's Doge orders earlier in the year, almost a quarter of permanent staff at national parks has been eliminated since January. Republicans in Congress are now considering additional cuts of more than $400 million to the budget of the Department of the Interior, the Park Service's parent entity.
This is the worst I've seen in 53 years.
That's Phil Francis. He's the chair of the Coalition to Protect America's National Parks and worked at the Park Service for more than 40 years, including as superintendent of Great Smoky Mountains National Park. He says those cuts largely impact important behind-the-scenes work, like rescue operations at parks like Mammoth Cave and the Smokies.
When I worked in the Smokies, we would have over 3,000 incidents a year. People would get lost, people would get injured.
He says that when park positions are eliminated, staff in park maintenance, emergency response, and scientific research go first.
There's no secret funding, so if you cut the budget, you're going to lose people, period.
He says the coalition has to rely on historical data to figure out what's going on behind the scenes, largely because since January, communication with the parks has been cut off.
They are not allowed to speak to us. And it's very difficult to find anyone who, off the record, will tell us the story.
He said the facts are that when funding is cut, you get rid of people. But the removal of those positions doesn't mean the work doesn't get done. It means that overworked park rangers are expected to pick up the slack. 2 rangers lead our group on the 2-mile trek through the tight twists and turns of the underground cave. In our safety briefing, our lead ranger told us that he's seen an increase in medical evacuations out of the cave.
I can tell you from experience, folks, that medical evacuation out of the cave will, and has taken typically about 6 hours to carry out.
Park advocates say staffing cuts reduce the resources needed for those rescues. As my group navigated the twists and turns of Mammoth Cave, squeezing through spaces single file and shimmying through tight passageways, the reality of a potential rescue mission set in. So why make those cuts if it means putting people at risk? Here's what Interior Secretary Doug Burgum told a Senate committee in July.
I believe that we can reduce what we spend in overhead in the park and have more people actually working in the parks.
Ebony Preston Goddard oversees the Southeast region for the National Parks Conservation Association. She says every cent spent on the Park Service is worth it in the long run.
The National Park Service represents 1/15 of 1% of the federal budget. And then what we've seen for every dollar that's been invested in the national park, we've seen at least $15 returned within that local community.
That local economic impact stands out for parks like Mammoth Cave, which has seen increasingly record-breaking attendance in recent years, and for the Smokies, which is the most visited national park in the country, with more than 12 million park goers in 2024 and an economic output of more than $3.4 billion in 2023. With large, financially successful parks at risk, Goddard worries for smaller sites in Appalachia with less notoriety, like the Cumberland Gap, the Appalachian Trail, Pisgah National Forest, and the Blue Ridge Parkway. The budget proposal is still under consideration from the U.S. House and Senate and will need to be approved and signed by the president by October 1st. I'm Derek Parham in Bowling Green.
A growing loneliness epidemic has gripped the country. People struggle to make connections with other people, and sometimes even within their own families. Some experts blame the internet, especially social media. But a Pennsylvania man is using the internet to connect with his extended family, and they number in the thousands. WESA's Kate Camarisi has the story.
So, all of these contain books either about the family, where the name is mentioned.
The shelves of Mark Miner's home office are crammed full of history books, binders, and photographs. Another room holds more photo albums and metal cabinets full of files.
These notebooks here are all family photos divided by branch. So I could open one and just page after page after page of photos.
Miner runs his own marketing firm out of his Beaver County office. It's also where he runs his labor of love, his family genealogy website, minerd.com. That's MINERD, the original spelling of the family name. The website, which launched in the year 2000, just celebrated its 25th birthday and has been the source of numerous family connections over the years.
And here's a cousin who played with the American Girls Professional Baseball League.
That's like the
League of
the
Their
movie,
Own.
yeah.
So there are 25 years worth of, here's a cousin who was a stewardess with Jack Benny as one of her passengers. You've heard of Jack Benny.
The site traces the descendants of Miner's fifth great-grandparents, Jacob Minerd Sr. and Maria Nine, who moved to Fayette County in 1791.
And they had 12 children. Of the 12, we know the identities of 8. Then their children married local Pennsylvania German families, the Yunken, the Harbaugh, the Ream, the Gomer, and pretty soon then, those 12 children had 80 grandchildren and 300-some great-grandchildren.
Miner learned some family history as a child. Among other things, his interest in the subject was sparked by a visit with his great-grandmother.
And then the old family photo album came out, and then a picture of great-grandma's grandmother, who was a Civil War widow, and then other tintypes and letters and cardboard-backed photos. And then I realized, it dawned on me, that all this history that my mother had read to me of Washington and Lincoln and cowboys and Indians, like we actually had relatives alive at that time. That blew my mind.
Miner spent years collecting records from libraries, courthouses, old newspapers, and other sources. He would share information in little printed booklets at family reunions. He realized he could reach a wider audience with a website, writing short biographies for every ancestor, linking to their parents and other family members.
Because I knew that out there were going to be tens of thousands of people, theoretically, who were going to Google their name or grandma's maiden name, and I wanted them to hit my site. And then I wanted them to make that psychological, emotional connection, and then contact me and let's start a dialogue.
The website was born, followed later by a companion Facebook page to help people connect even further.
We have cousins who have made contact, who have been to our reunion, who are on our private family Facebook page, who connect through the 5th great or 6th great grandparents. So they're probably 5th or 6th cousins. It's really, really distant.
25 years later, the website remains a tool the extended Miner clan can use to connect with relatives near and far. But Miner says for him, it's also become something more than that, making history more real, less abstract.
The more you see it, the more you see the cousins that helped build Falling Water, or helped build the Panama Canal, or covered the Lincoln-Douglas debates, and on I could give many, many examples. You realize that the touches with American life, American history, culture, is astonishing beyond anything I or any of us could have ever imagined.
I'm Kate Camarisi in Pittsburgh.
7 years ago, poet Michael Hevich landed in Black Mountain, North Carolina. Since moving there, Hevich has published 4 books of poetry, including his latest, A Sharper Silence. The book explores nature, touches on Hurricane Helene, and speaks of his relationship with his wife, Colleen, who died in January of lung cancer. Producer Bill Lynch spoke with Hevich about the collection.
Would you like to read something?
Certainly. I'd like to read a poem called Delicate Bones. Delicate Bones. She called to say there was a snake in our bedroom. Nothing to be scared of, just a little guy. She said I should come home and see it before it slipped into a closet or under the floorboards. It looked harmless, she said, and very beautiful. When she texted pictures, I couldn't help noticing the bulge halfway down the snake's body, a mouse, or even a chipmunk. And indeed, the snake was a beauty. Then she said it had slipped away already. I hope it's not hiding in a drawer or the dirty clothes hamper. I'd told her, I'm sure, my brother had a boa constrictor as a boy. Our mother helped him feed it once a month with laboratory rats she got from the Cancer Research Center in town. It took a whole month for the lump in the snake to move from the front to the back, out. By then, just delicate bones, scrubbed clean. My brother watched that snake while he lay in his bed, recovering from cancer. He'd been stitched up along the back of his head, a bit like those test rats. The thread was black and the stitches looked sloppy, like a badly mended baseball. I remember how wide the snake opened its mouth as the dazed rat just seemed to walk in.
That's interesting. So why did you choose that poem?
Well, I chose it because I think when one is first becoming acquainted with a poet's work, it's often good to start with the more accessible of that poet's poems, and its images are readily available. You know, they're quite striking. I think I just feel like it's a good one to start with, and I think the ending image, at least to me, is a strong one, and it's not just a strong one for the poem itself, but I think it's a strong one for the book.
Okay, well, talk about the book a little bit.
In 2023, my wife was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer. And so this book, which is called A Sharper Silence, was written during the 2 years she was surviving the stage 4 lung cancer. So all the poems in the book are about the experience of two people who love each other and have loved each other for a long time, facing the end of one of those two people's lives. And I wasn't going to publish it, but then a friend of mine said, why don't you try sending it to the press that did publish it, which is called Terrapin Books, and I did. That's where this book came from.
Okay. You've lived several places, the very different locations, and you've experienced everything, New York, Vermont, Colorado, Florida. Does place play into your poetry, into your work?
Absolutely. Every aspect of my poems, I think, employ place in the flora, fauna, light, and trees and flowers of those various places. In fact, I've thought in the past sometimes that one reason I never really use New York, for example, except in poems about family. Of course, I write about family too, but place doesn't really enter in my memory when I think of New York. And I think there was a certain familiarity to the place, having grown up there, that made the sort of striking images that wake one up and bring a poem to the fore, at least for me. It doesn't really happen there. And one of the things about Miami was it was always such a strikingly surprising place, that I couldn't help walking out, my yard and seeing something that elicited what ended up being a poem. I would say place is central to me. And sometimes people have called me a nature poet, which I don't think I am at all. But I think I would say I'm a poet of place, and a poet that has written about and drawn from many different places that I have inhabited.
Okay. What's your perspective like where you live now?
Beautiful. I love it here. I not only love the land and the landscape and the rivers and the vividness of everything that's growing around me all the time. And that's another thing that I just got back from Santa Fe, and in the 2 weeks I was in Santa Fe, my whole garden, everything growing around my house, it grew by 2 feet, and I had to get out there and pull out all the weeds. And it was only 2 weeks ago that I left, So that stuff is amazing to me. I love the fact that we have bears coming across our property all the time. To my mind, they're wild, and so I love watching them and just being quiet around them. But I also love the culture here. I love the people more than any other place I've ever lived. The people are open in a way that is, I don't know how to say it, just beautiful. And I welcome it. We're in a very wounded landscape now from Hurricane Helene.
I was going to ask about Helene.
And one of the things that, happened during Hurricane Helene, my wife was not doing well then, late September, and people helped us. People we didn't even know helped us. We had to leave our house for 5 weeks and go stay with friends. Actually, friends we didn't even know before the hurricane. We stayed in their house for 5 weeks, and they were generous and gracious to us for the entire time. Something that just moves my heart so deeply. And people came to our property and cleaned it up for us and helped us in so many unprecedented and unpredictable ways. I'm so grateful.
The new book obviously deals with a very difficult time in your life. Where are you with your writing now?
That's a great question. Thank you for that. Well, when my wife Colleen, died, what I really turned to was writing and writing poems, because that's what I've done my whole life, really. I wrote a 50 or so page poem in sections, not just a continuous poem, but I wrote every day. For the first 3 weeks or so, I just got up in the morning and just worked on memories and feelings and all sorts of things that were coming to me then. And I just wrote these poems, and I ended up writing a whole book of poems. And I'm actually not going to do what I normally do, which would be go back over and revise and revise and revise until they're quote unquote good poems or finished poems. I'm just going to keep the manuscript as it is, and perhaps publish it, perhaps not, but that is the main thing I did in terms of writing after she passed away. And I'm always working on writing. I get up every day and work on writing. It's not that it gives you solace, but it gives you, in a sense, something to do, someplace to go, a home, when everything has been sort of, I guess, ripped away. So I'm very grateful to the fact that I discovered poetry as a young guy, and I've just been working on it for my entire life. It's almost as though that's the gift that it gave me. I have this time of, I'm not sure, solace, I guess, in the work. However good it is. I know, it might not be good, it might be terrible, it might not, that doesn't really matter to me now.
That was Michael Hevich speaking with Bill Lynch. A Sharper Silence is available through Terrapin Books. Nico Lang is a non-binary, award-winning journalist who spent over a decade covering the transgender community. Their work has appeared in Rolling Stone, Esquire, the New York Times, and the Wall Street Journal. Lang's latest book, American Teenager, chronicles the daily lives of 8 transgender teens across the U.S., including one in West Virginia. WVPB's Jack Walker spoke with Lang and brings us this.
We're here to discuss your recent book, American Teenager. For those who may be unfamiliar, could you provide a brief description of the book and what this project entailed?
Sure. So I spent a year traveling the country to document the lives of trans teenagers and their families in 7 different states. Let's see if I can do this in order. South Dakota, Alabama, West Virginia, Texas, Florida, Illinois, and California. And my goal with that was to show trans teens simply as they are. That I feel like right now there's a lot of rhetoric about trans kids, like a lot of people talking about trans kids, but not enough people actually talking to trans kids or including them in the conversation. So with this project, it was really all about uplifting their voices. So for those 2.5 weeks, I would follow them around, sort of do what they did, kind of like as a fly on the wall documentary. So if they were like eating dinner, I'd be eating dinner with them. If they were going to the football game, I would be going to a football game. If they were jumping out of an airplane, I would be jumping out of an airplane. And I'm really glad we didn't have to do that because that would be terrifying. But I think more than that, it was just about giving them a platform to say their piece. Like I wanted them to get to express themselves freely, to get to say, what's on their minds, as they're experiencing this really historic attack on their rights, and also just give people a chance to know them, to give readers a chance to know them.
And you mentioned that one teenager who is featured in the story is from West Virginia, that being a teen named Micah. What led you to report on West Virginia, and what was your experience meeting Micah and visiting the state like?
I had the chance to cover a queer youth summer camp there several years ago for Extra, which is a Canadian queer outlet. And going to that camp was like one of the best experiences of my life. Like I often say that it's really like my top 3 are getting married to my husband, which really has to be number 1, or else, I'm sure he would divorce me. Then writing this book. And then under that, it would be going to this camp. It was just a truly magical experience to be part of it with these kids who get this really, this really like once in a lifetime chance at community in this very special place, but also to get to bond with these other adults too, who I think look at the camp as kind of like a little bit of healing of their own experiences, because it represents something that I think a lot of queer adults wanted for themselves and didn't get. And one of the campers there, sort of like the queen bee of camp, as I say in the book, is Micah, who, when we first met, I believe they would have been about 17 at the time, but they really struck me just right away as this like ebullient, really over the top presence. Those kinds of people in your life that you meet them once and you'll never forget them ever. Mike is very much one of those people. Just super gregarious, super fun to be around, just this great, big, fun energy. And a story like Micah's, being this Black gender fluid person in West Virginia really intrigued me for this book, just because they are such a happy person. And it made me wonder how a very happy person deals with the challenges of living in rural West Virginia, where sometimes things as a Black gender fluid person aren't terribly happy.
Were there any sort of similarities you saw between the experiences of teenagers across the different states you visited?
No, not really. I mean, that was kind of on purpose, though. I tried to draw as much of a contrast between people's experiences as possible, just because, I guess for a couple reasons. One is that, somewhat selfishly, I wanted to write a good book. So if I were writing the same chapter over and over again, I would think for the reader it would get quite boring. But more than that, I really wanted to avoid flattening these kids' experiences, in that I think sometimes the only thing that trans and queer people necessarily have in common is being LGBTQ+. Other than that, we're all so different from each other. And sometimes in media portrayals, we get really flattened and pigeonholed, pretending that we're all the same. And I think one of the beautiful things about us is that difference.
You also kind of dive into their lives beyond just sort of the flashier cultural conversations, and you kind of sat with, I guess, the more everyday moments of what their lives are like and what their, aspirations and personalities are like. Do you see that as contributing to that effort you're talking about of not just sticking to these sort of recurring themes in the way that trans teens are represented, but instead fleshing out their lives?
Well, I think for me, it was about representing somebody as a whole person, that I think a lot of the time when I get to interview trans kids about their lives, like I often through my work have to just ask them these kind of boilerplate questions about like, oh, the bad thing that happened in your state. I don't get to just ask like, hey, what's a concert that you recently went to? How was it? Did you have a good time? It's the kind of like mundanity, the like beautiful mundanity of daily life, but that just gets denied to trans kids because they always have to speak on behalf of these things that don't really have anything to do with them necessarily. Not necessarily these things that are like intrinsic to them, that say a ton about them and their just lived experiences. So with this book, I wanted it to be about all that other stuff that they never got to talk about. I wanted them to be seen as a fully rounded individual in the same way that cis kids have been getting forever. Cis kids get to have like random hobbies and interests that have nothing to do with their like gender or their like sexuality. Why not trans kids?
That was journalist Nico Lang speaking with reporter Jack Walker. American Teenager is available from Abrams Press. Summer is high time for string band music. And since 1990, mountaineers have gathered in Clifftop, West Virginia for the Appalachian String Band Festival. The festival attracts thousands of old-time music fans from around the world. And if you know much about old-time, you know most folks who journey there don't show up just to listen, but to play and dance. WVPB's Randy Yohe went out for a visit and brought us this.
On the first cool Saturday afternoon in quite a while, about 24 old-time musical groups took the stage to compete in a special part of the String Band Festival. The traditional band contest has a life of its own. Contest coordinator Bobby Taylor says this gathering began in the early 1980s as a bluegrass event. In 1990, Taylor and others decided this West Virginia Mountaintop Music Fest needed to showcase the sounds that originated here.
West Virginia has a very old tradition of old-time fiddles and banjo players. Other little areas of the country have their own spatial little areas too. We all share and learn from each other. And West Virginia being somewhat remote compared to big areas, the music here has been shared from one generation to the next. I once said it's a homecoming in the hills for old-time musicians, their friends, and their family. And it has grown over the years into several thousand that you see today.
At its heart, old time is the pre-bluegrass folk music of the Appalachian Mountains. The core instruments in an old-time string band are fiddle, banjo, and guitar, with mandolin, harmonica, or upright bass joining in. This is a homecoming for Louisville fiddle player Jim McGee, who lived here in Fayette County in the 80s and 90s. McGee remembers that first Clifftop String Music Fest 34 years ago.
It was really laid back. There were a small number of people, maybe 200 or 300. And they had the same stage here. And then people started talking about it. We would go to the Rock Bridge Festival in Lexington, Virginia, and they say, boy, we had a great time at Clifftop. And you really ought to think about going next year. And everyone started talking about it in other places, you know, and then they came to it.
Multi-instrumentalist Andy Wolf from Columbia, South Carolina is among the thousands who come back again and again. Wolf brings his family, and they do more than just come along for the ride.
It's back porch picking. Before we had, electronic entertainment of every type, including the radio, people made music. That was what they did in the evenings. So we're still making music. I taught my kids. My kids will probably teach their kids. I've been coming here with my youngest son since he was 4 years old. He was on stage when he was 4 years old. And it was a terrific experience.
At her third Old-Time Music Fest, Richmond, Virginia banjo player Rachel Dunaway says her highlights don't come on stage, but in the evening jam sessions.
I think I really love how social it is, and I think it's just a really solid and tight community. You can come here or any other sort of old-time gathering, and you'll find people from all different places, and you're all kind of bonded by that love of music, and you can just sit down and play tunes together even if you've never met before.
Dunaway and 71-year-old upright bass player Fred Levine are in the Floyd, Virginia-based Jack Wilson Terrier Band. Now, Levine says he won the traditional band contest a few times with the Cutting Up Gumbies. Their chief competition back then was the Mondo Mafia and the Free Will Savages. But in the end, Levine says, it's all about fun and family.
Old-time music gives me, it just gives me joy. It gives me just energy. It just feels like it's happy music. And I like the collective energy of everyone playing together, as opposed to bluegrass where it's a performance art. It's dance music, and it's out to make people feel good. Very special, because my daughter is a great player. It's very important to pass this down, and she kind of grew up with this music, and became very important to her. But I brought her since she was a little kid, and she won some ribbons at Mount Airy when she was like 9, 10 years old, And then I brought her here, and I brought my other kids here. My other kids don't play old time, but they still have wonderful memories of being here as kids.
It seems every other player here can tell similar stories. Rachel Dunaway says for her, when the week ends, a mix of music emotions can overwhelm.
The post-festival blues is a real thing. It's like you've got all this dopamine and energy from being around and jamming and staying up all night and playing with everyone, and then you come home and you're like, oh man, it's all over. But it's super fun. It kind of gives you those, like, you get to do things with other people. You don't necessarily have to talk to other people as much, but you can sit down and play with them.
What an old-time Appalachian musical line. You don't have to talk to other people too much, but you can sit down and play with them. For West Virginia Public Broadcasting, I'm Randy Yohe in Clifftop, West Virginia.
Till next time, thanks for joining us as we journey throughout Appalachia. Our theme music is by Matt Jackford. Other music this week was provided by Ron Mullinex, Lips, Coffin Smoke, Nerve Endings, Ex-Parents, War Moans, Wind Rider, Buzzhound, Eric Vincent Huey, Paul Loomis, Mary Hott, Blue Dot Sessions, and John Blissard. Bill Lynch is our producer. Abby Neff is our associate producer. Our executive producer is Eric Douglas. Kelly Libby is our editor. Our audio mixer is Patrick Stevens. We had help this week from Folkways editor Jennifer Gore. You can find us on Instagram @InAppalachia. You can also send us an email to insideappalachia@wvpublic.org. Visit wvpublic.org/InsideAppalachia to subscribe to our newsletter and stream all of our stories. Or look for Inside Appalachia on your favorite podcast app. Inside Appalachia is a production of West Virginia Public Broadcasting.